Welcome everybody to the last session of this meeting that we've had here, a wonderful meeting. I'm Sharon Rosen, I'm on the Council of Experts of FoRB, and I have also lived in Jerusalem for over 40 years of my life. I'm living there now, so I'm happy to provide some stories and initiatives that have been taking place in my country if there is time during questions. We've been hearing of many and diverse difficulties that communities are facing regarding freedom, religious and secular. But at the same time, we mustn't forget the tremendous resilience some of these communities exhibit as well. So as we move towards the end of this ministerial, we're going to focus on some inspiring stories that we can take away with, concrete initiatives that are taking place, and hopefully we will also speak about how they have come about so that we can take those examples and possibly extrapolate for our own communities. Recently, I was at an international meeting where each panel was for 2.5 hours, and the moderator spoke longer than the panelists. So I've decided, as we only have an hour, I'm going to keep it very short, and hopefully we will have some time for a few questions at the end. So the structure of this session is as follows. I'm going to invite each panelist to speak, well, I was told 3 minutes, but I'm going to say 3 to 5 minutes, but not more than that. And after that, we'll have some discussion amongst the panelists themselves, and then hopefully open it up. Some MENA countries, as you can see from the title of this, it's FoRB in Middle East and North Africa. We haven't got every country represented here, but hopefully we can cover quite a few of them. So let's move to our panelists. And I'm going to keep the introductions to a minimum so that we have more time for discussion. We'll begin with Sheikh Mahfouz bin Bayer, who is the Secretary General of the Abu Dhabi Forum of Peace in the United Arab Emirates. I know what it's like to be introduced as the wife of, or even now the mother of, but I hope you don't mind me saying that you are the son of one of the most foremost Muslim scholars and leaders of our time, Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayer, who is a great man of peace, and his son is as well. So I'm really delighted to pass it over to you.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. First, I would like to convey the greeting of my father, Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayer, to Ambassador Rahak. Ambassador Rahak is one of those champions for peace, and peace is a long journey. And when you work for it, you have to expect it. You're never going to lose your job because it's a commitment, and I think it's from cradle to the grave. And I will thank my friend Greg Mitchell for his insisting how to make me come. I love Prague, and it's one of the Lord city. So I want to thank the government of Czech Republic for daily, consistently working and doing this conference. And we would love to all united around this conference. Sustainability, it's one of the good quality, and the trees never give a fruit in one day. They said sometimes you see old men trying to put some seeds for olive oil trees, but that's for next generations. So I think working for peace, we should not lose hope. I know you will look around you and you think we are so many, but still, we're just very, very small group. We hope, as Twinbee said, when the civilization gets sick, it's saved by the creative minority. I hope to say we're not a creative minority, but we're the blessed minority, that we still believe in peace before crisis, and in the crisis and after crisis. The peace is the only thing we'll seek. The great Iraqi poet Muhammad Mehdi Jawahiri, while sitting in a cafe of Slavia in Prague, overlooking the Vltava river, recited these lines: "Did the beauty fill up this city and make it shine? Or did the city rise in the pride and make the beauty fill up it? Ask beauty itself, could it ever create something more wonderful than that it has made here?" So that's how much he loved Prague and how much he described the beauty of this city. I'm honored to join this session on the freedom of religion and belief in Middle East and North Africa. The Abu Dhabi Forum for Peace, it is a partner work permitting human dignity and building on the common values that united all people, even with our differences. These shared values help us to build bridges and remind us of our duty to work together so that a human family does not face conflicts and diversity. We are, in a moral sense, fighters trying to prevent the fire before it's being. We must work together and to restore the moral consequences of humanity and to make sure that scientific progress always goes hand by hand with ethics progress. History shows that civilization without values destroys itself. We also follow the vision of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the United Arab Emirates, who wants the Emirates to remain the house of Zayed, a place of peace and shared living for everyone. This vision guides our efforts to remind us that hate speech is dangerous. Wars often begin with words, long before any weapons appear. So we want you to know, when you have those people, activists, I just spoke about this 2 days ago in House of Lords in UK, because you cannot have a guest and provide for him a space to keep just criticizing and hate your friends. And you told your friends, please, he's just my guest. Told your guests to don't keep shouting from far. Haters, you should not accept it in your home. And hate speech, should guys do something about to divide between hate speech and freedom of speech. There is a freedom of speech, but it's not freedom of haters. It's not freedom of haters. Any kind of freedom is gonna lead to hate speech, is not a freedom. And we're not longer gonna tolerate that. We're not gonna longer tolerate the definition of hate speech or freedom of speech. We need to divide between the two words. So, as a part of our approach, God willing, we will present real series of sacrifice and loyal duties in the 10th of anniversary of Marrakesh Declaration, which will be in January. Marrakesh Declaration, as you know, it's for protecting non-Muslim minority in Muslim-majority countries. And we're going to announce for the first time in the history, observatory in Marrakesh for non-Muslim minority in Muslim-majority countries. Because every time we try to engage with the government, they said, oh, where do you get this information from? From Human Rights Watch or from State Department or from United Nations report? We can't approach that. So we want to make for them their own report from inside. That is not going to be, the language is going to be different, but the goals is the same. To advance human dignity and the right of minority, and to advance to encourage the policymakers from parliament to work in their constitutions, to be clear about the right of minority. Sharon looking to me, I think my time is running out. She's my sister, and I will begging her to give me 1 minute more.
Please. 1 minute.
Oh, only 1 minute, okay, that's good. Please, no one else ask for 1 minute. So I just want to say thank you so much for keep organizing this. We're going to be keeping always partners. We have no conditions. We have no political agenda. We have no agendas at all except advancing the understanding about the human right and the human dignity. And we dig in our religion, trying to bring out interpretation that integrating 1.2 billion Muslims to the world positively with their religion, not against their religion and against the world. Other thing I want to say, I'm not working for this to make a lot of Christian Muslims or Jewish. I have enough Muslims. And I would love to give 20% of them or 50% to the others if they want. So I want to make sure that they understand we're not working for that. Working for peace, tranquility, inclusive citizenship, working for human neighbors, working for love, working for to really have everybody included in Middle East. No one should be behind. Abrahamic family, they're going to unite their house. They're going to really maintain it. They're going to take out all those they're trying to divide us. We're going to try to really do our best. Just we need your support. If you cannot support us, pray for us. If you cannot pray for us, don't be against us. We have a good intention. We're working for something good. Advise us, guide us, help us. Please do anything that's positive. Don't judge us. Well, we have enough judgment from airports for our brown colors as Arabs coming from Middle East. So to everything else, we suffer from that, but we never give up. And we're never going to give up. I'm not. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Sheikh Mahfouz. Thank you for reminding us of the danger of hate speech, of the need to balance between hate speech and freedom of speech. Also, I just picked up on this 10th anniversary of the Marrakesh Declaration. I think it's really important for us to remember that it's been 10 years. These things do not happen overnight, that the sustainment of the message of the Marrakesh Declaration takes time and education over countries, and the fact that you are taking this 10th anniversary to spread it even further is extremely important and a very concrete initiative. So let me turn to Mohammed Al-Sanusi, my good friend, who is the US Commissioner on International Religious Freedom, although here he's speaking in his personal capacity. He's also the Executive Director of NRTP, the Global Network for Religious and Traditional Peacemakers. And you can be sure that wherever there is religious peacemaking Mohammed is there sharing his wisdom and enormous experience. So over to you, Mohammed.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sister Sharon. And if I may ask for my 1 minute beforehand, so make it begin here. But really, to echo Sheikhna here, to also express my gratitude and appreciation and thanks to the government of the Czech Republic and, of course, our good friend and brother, Ambassador Rihak, for keeping this tradition. And the forum actually is getting better every year. You guys, do you agree? If you agree, you should clap. It's getting better every year. It's getting better. You know, this year we were honored that the president of the country honored this gathering by expressing his support to this movement of religious freedom, which is something that's the way we want to give religious freedom, this push from the highest political establishment. It's going to facilitate our work here as civil society and everything else. So thank you for that. Sister Sharon, this panel is focusing on the Middle East. And let us, all of us, acknowledge that the Middle East and North Africa, the numerical minorities, the minority religious communities are going through a difficult time. It's a reality. Let's acknowledge that. This reality, we have seen a number of religious minorities, particularly the Christian communities, are leaving the Middle East. These are facts. We have to acknowledge that. The Middle East, if it is going through this way, it is going to lose one of its most important component of the society. So let's do our best, actually, to keep the essential components in the Middle East. Now, what I'm going to leave you with, we want to look into our toolbox and see what kind of tools we have in our toolbox so that we can advance religious freedom. And I have 4 suggestions for you. Number 1, we need to look at the theologies, teachings, and traditions that establish the importance of religious freedom and social cohesion through a contextual lens. Currently, the promotion of these ideas is underutilized. So this is number 1 tool that we need to look into it. We understand across religions there are commonalities in teaching the emphasis, the virtues that we talked about it. If you remember yesterday in the big opening, we talked about the virtues. Everybody agreed. Virtues of compassion, peace, justice, mercy. All of us agreed on those virtues, right? So we need to find the best way. So I mentioned the first tool. Let me give you the illustration of this first tool working in the Middle East. Let's take Morocco. Morocco is actually training imams and religious actors, including women, on inclusive theology. You go to Morocco today, in a mosque, you will find a woman teaching theology, what they call them al-murshidat. Another example, I will bring it to you from Tunisia. One of our members of the network called At-Talaqi in Tunisia, At-Talaqi in Tunisia. They're also creating these kind of working groups or groups that explore key themes such as religious freedom, citizenship, pluralisms. They're doing these groups across the country to emphasize our theology and the contextual theology that we need. Second, we need to look at our shared history of peaceful coexistence. We acknowledge that there are grievances and conflicts between communities throughout our history, yet we have shining examples of people living in harmony together in the past and in the present. Another example, coming again to all of you from Morocco. There is an association called Maymuna in Morocco. Maymuna, how many people in the room heard about Maymuna? I see David Rosen is nodding his head. Great, so a couple of people. Maimuna in Morocco exemplifies the spirit of coexistence founded by the Muslim students who recognize that Morocco's Jewish heritage is an integral part of the nation's identity. Maimuna works to celebrate and preserve the country's long history of interfaith harmony through educational programs, story books for children, and cultural initiatives. You know, I was in Morocco with Sheikhna and Fadi 3 weeks ago, and the Maimuna director came and he said that, look, this is a map. The map we showed to the children in story. It has the mosque, it has the synagogue, it has the church. We want people from young age actually to learn that. That takes me to the third point I'm making. Look, we're still looking into the toolbox, right? So I mentioned 2 tools. I have the third tool. The third tool is we need to ensure we prioritize the inclusion of women and youth in all of our efforts. This year, as you all know, we celebrated the 25th anniversary of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. The role of women is a critical tool we need to utilize more and more. For example, the Women Empowerment Organization in Iraq. I'm taking to you Iraq now. The organizations engage women and youth as central agents of change, empowering them to lead local peace, dialogue, interfaith, storytelling initiatives, and community educations on coexistence and rights and participants coming from all wide range of background. Now, I had the opportunity to speak at the 25th anniversary at the UN of the 1325 event hosted by the government of Namibia a few weeks ago in New York. Messages coming from the event are clear. Women's voices must be present in every space. Another voice we heard, the era of symbolic inclusion of women is over. Another message we heard, we need to move beyond representation to impact. These are the messages coming finally, and my final tool in the toolbox that you have. Our efforts must always move from local to global. Global policies and frameworks should be informed by local experiences, context, and knowledge. Communities living on the ground and their local leaders, such as religious actors, possesses the most accurate understanding of local dynamics, changes, and opportunities. By integrating these insights into the global policy, we need to bring local to multilateralism, right? We can create initiatives that are not only effective, but also sustainable and culturally sensitive. That's really so important. And finally, what we see in all of these examples is what I call creative diplomacy, since we have a lot of diplomats here, to leverage religious freedom so that we can advance forward. Thank you so much, Sharon. I think I finished.
I'm being very kind. I was going to cut everybody off after 3 minutes, but you brought some wonderful concrete examples from different parts of MENA region. Thank you for your 4 very clear tools in the toolbox. And now we're going to move over to Fadi Hachem, who is a human rights and FoRB programs manager in Lebanon. Not only am I really delighted to have a young person on this panel, and in fact we've seen quite a few during this ministerial. It's something that I've been advocating for the last several years. But not only me, of course, Dr. Tang has been a very, very strong supporter of that, as is Ambassador Rehak as well. So I'm really glad to see that happening. I'm also particularly delighted to welcome Fadi because I've worked very closely with him, and he was instrumental in leading the successful interreligious freedom roundtable that searched for common ground, my old organization that I retired from a few months ago, set up in Lebanon. So over to you, Fadi.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, everyone, for having us. I wouldn't be a good Arab if I didn't start with a story that has nothing to do with what I'm about to say. But I'm going to say that a while ago, I was at a musical workshop in Amsterdam, and the director of the workshop asked me asked everyone actually, if we want to do Christmas songs. And I told her very excitingly, yes, please, let's do Christmas songs. And she answered, do you know any Christmas songs? I told her, why wouldn't I? She said, because you're Arab. I told her, I need to introduce you to a very famous Arab person. She said, whom? I told her, Jesus Christ. A very important starting point is the term minorities itself. The word we are using in the title of this session, before we discuss the situation of minorities in the MENA region, we must pause and acknowledge that the term itself, for us in the region, is part of the problem. Many minority communities, especially the religious minorities in the region, do not necessarily perceive this word as a positive term for them, especially when they hear and see that in the news what is said about minorities and what the region does for minorities. For them, minority often implies weakness, vulnerability, or even the threat of disappearing altogether sometimes. Some communities, when we were doing the research and doing interviews and focus group discussions with them, they said, please do not call us minorities. That means something bad. That means we are weak and we don't accept this to be nominated this way. They have spent years trying to remain unseen. Some of these minorities have been very shy and try to remain unseen because they want to avoid persecution and discrimination. Suddenly, labeling them as minorities, for them, can expose them in ways that did not choose. This is a crucial perspective of how minorities see themselves in the region and how they perceive the categories imposed on them. The challenge is made more complex in the absence of an international definition for the word minorities. And gladly, in the toolbox that Muhammad presented, there are many definitions of the word, and I'm going to talk about that in a few. But something very important is that in all of these toolboxes that Muhammad named, there's a word that has been repetitively used in this forum that we ourselves are trying not to use anymore, which is the word tolerance. Because in the English language, the word tolerance has a negative connotation. It means that you are obliged to be there with another person and you tolerate them. Our word that we use, we try to approach peaceful coexistence or peaceful living together. Living together is even better than coexistence if you can get there. And that's the aim and the goal that we try to use. With this perspective in mind, allow me to highlight 3 initiatives we are leading at ADIAN at the regional level to strengthen the rights, visibility, and protection of minority communities. The first one is the one that was mentioned by Sharon, which is the National Working Group on Freedom of Religion and Belief in Lebanon, which is a partner organization to the regional platform of religion and belief that is led by Dr. Salah Ali, who was also present with us in the room. It was established in 2021 and brings together experts and organizations working on freedom of religion and belief. 2 of these organizations being minority organizations from Lebanon. This national working group has published this year the first ever shadow report on freedom of religion and belief in Lebanon's review this year in the Universal Periodic Review, and has published an instrumental research on religious minorities in Lebanon. The second important tool is education. Education as a primary tool for preventing violations. And when we talk about education, we talk here about a multi-layered education. First, we talk about education about minorities. So first, education about minorities directly from the minorities. And that is a very important approach that we use. We shoot videos of minorities, documentaries, living stories of these minorities, and let them be the ones talking about themselves. Let them be the ones telling their stories. Explain to the others what it means in our faith, what we are. The second one is education for public officials through partnerships with universities that we do, where we educate public officials on the issues of minorities and the rights of minorities, especially that most of our countries have not ratified the declaration on, or adopted the Declaration of Minorities. Sorry, not ratified. A very important tool as well that I want to emphasize on again is the interpretation of religious texts in a way to promote values. And that has been proven through the work of Adyan to be one of the most successful tools that one can use in the promotion of positive values, such as respect for the other communities and living together. We use the religious texts, the text of the Quran, the text of the Bible, and the text of all these groups, sometimes in separate groups, the Muslims alone and the Christians alone, but sometimes as well, all together, try to find commonalities. Which text from the Quran says has a similar message from a text from the Bible? And how can we use a common language in our sermons to promote positive language between both of these texts? And third, and most important, education is the education for minority communities themselves. We need to understand that some of these minorities need to be increased in terms of capacity on their rights and the mechanisms that they can approach, the way they can monitor violations and the way that they can report them, and who is available for which. I need my 1 minute already, but I have been asked by both of them to talk about the Marrakesh Declaration, so they didn't, and it's very important. We cannot be talking about minorities in the Middle East without talking about the Marrakesh Declaration. And why the Marrakesh Declaration is a document that is not like the others is that for 4 reasons. One, it reaffirms the rights and dignity of religious minorities from an Islamic jurisprudential perspective, which is the only document that does so in the entire world. And it talks about the rights of minorities from an Islamic jurisprudential perspective, which has been combated for a long while. Everyone who thinks about Islamic principles think that they are against minorities. This is the document that shows how much Islam puts effort on protecting religious minorities. It is a homegrown legitimacy document. It speaks the language of the region, and it's rooted in the values of the region. So one of the big problems we've always had is that we bring in documents and we say, this document does not represent what we say in the region. Well, this document is created by the region to talk about the issue of minorities. And finally, it provides not only big texts and big slogans, it's an actionable document, and we've been working on that with the network. It's an actionable document that guides actions that you can take and start implementing directly. I won't take long. Finally, the third concept that I want to talk about is the concept that we've championed at Adyan for more than 20 years. It's the concept of religious responsibility. It's the concept that when we call companies to uphold their corporate responsibility towards human rights, we believe that there is a concept that is named religious responsibility. It's a concept that ties that every person of faith and every religious institutions shares a responsibility to protect, promote, and respect human dignity. And every person of faith that identifies as a person of faith, every religious institution that identifies as a religious institution, no matter what the religious is, no matter what the belief is responsible towards upholding human dignity, and that is a religious responsibility. This principle lies at the heart of inclusive citizenship, peaceful coexistence, and the safeguarding of vulnerable communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Fadi. Thank you for reminding us about the sensitivity of language. It reminded me of the fact that I was once in a 2-day seminar, I think with a few people who are here in the audience, where the main topic of discussion was whether we can call it freedom of religion or belief, freedom of religion and belief, or inclusive citizenship. And after the 2 days, we didn't actually come to a conclusion or an agreement on it. But that's just one example. But as you say, minorities, we hear that as well very much, that minorities is a very sensitive and a negative term for many minorities. Thank you for focusing on education. I have a lot to say about that, certainly about what we have been doing in the Holy Land, but I'm not going to. I'm going to be very disciplined. And I'm going to move on immediately to our final, but certainly not least important fourth panelist, Habib Ephraim, who is advisor to the Lebanese president on human rights and interfaith dialogue, and is president of the Syriac League, and I have learnt also president of the 12 Christian associations in Lebanon.
tell me, this is a message to leaders in the Middle East, tell me how do you treat your minorities, and I tell you what kind of a ruler, of a leader that you are. The Middle East is not about minorities. We are all indigenous peoples in that part of the world. We all have equal rights to live, to exist, to be free, to have political rights, irrespective of our numbers, irrespective of our background, irrespective of our belief. We believe or not, what God we worship. Unfortunately, the Middle East now, and especially for the last years, is full of hatred, of refusing the other, of wars, of genocide, of discrimination, hate speech. And to finish from this, we need a new era of values, a new era, a new mentality. There are no solutions that would come from one group or from one religion or from one leader. We are all obliged to go into a process of what I call a renaissance in that part of the world, accepting the other as equal. No one has a divine right or mission to kill the other if he does not like it, to change his religion by force, to force him to leave the land, to do genocide. This should stop. And we feel that the free world, what we call the free world, is not putting enough pressure, is not putting enough, and sometimes the West, the free world, is rewarding those who are known as terrorists in different places. I come from Lebanon and would like to promote ourselves as a country that we are a role model. We have in our political system a lot of problems, of deficiencies, we have histories of civil wars in Lebanon. But yet the mere idea that we are the only place in the world where two major religions, Christianity and Islam, live together, not side by side. In Syria and Iraq, you have the same pluralism, the same diversity. But we share political power equally. Lebanon is the only place in the world where Christians and Muslims share power, 50-50 in government, 50-50 in parliament and in administration. This makes it a unique place. Everywhere in the world, for example, Christians in other countries in the Middle East feel that they are living in a Muslim place. They are not an integral part of the country. Muslims in the West feel that they are Muslims living in Christian countries. Only in Lebanon, no one lives at others' place. Everyone lives in Lebanon because we are equal in power sharing. So what we would like to see is finishing from the story of fighting terrorism. We do not believe that for the last 20 years the world is not being able to finish the ISIS problem, not as a military group, even as a way of thinking, as an extremist approach to others. We feel that we should put more pressure on all governments and leaders in that part of the world so that human rights, so that religious freedom, equal rights for everyone would be not a gift from a leader, but it be a part of the constitution in the country. That the willingness of the majority would feel that it is time to believe in equal rights for everyone. We would like to thank Ambassador Robert Helak for this great event, but we'd like to see more of lobbying together to put more pressure on all governments so that these values would be part of the foreign policy, so that these values would be implemented in the foreign policies, not being only an academic issue or to publish books or between academic, but it should be a very integral part of the policies of the government. So thank you very much. And this is my message from Lebanon. We are waiting for a visit from the new Pope to Beirut, his first visit ever. Would like to reinvent the role of Lebanon, and I think we might be hosting something like this conference in Beirut very soon, and you are all will be all most welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Habib, for that. So a call from to this ministerial that we need to lobby our governments more, something very concrete. And as we have representatives of governments here, I think the message has been directed specifically to them. We actually have some time. Before I go to questions from the audience, I wanted to know whether you would like to, members of the panel, would like to comment on what you have heard. And I would like to put forward one question, and that is, how do you build relationships of trust? Because that seems to be the absolute basis of how we can move forward. And we hear that we need the trust, we need the relationships, but it's often very, very difficult to build them. And I'd really be grateful to hear from you.
I should speak the last because I want to learn from their answers. That's sometimes what the panels they do. I think lead by example for how to make it. The three people I know in my life and I learn from them, one Catholic, his name Dr. William Vendley, and one Jewish, his name Rabbi David Rosen, and one is my father, Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya. The common thing between these three people, they never give up. They never give up seeking peace. And they never compromise their values, or virtues, actually. Because virtues is the guard of values. Values change from place to place, but virtues, they never compromise their virtues. During the crisis, they still having a hope. And during the peace, they still having a hope to evade a crisis. So I think despair not of God's grace and engaging with everyone, it's the right policy. If you have a message, you should be kind. And you should have the first tool is good character. When you have a good character, people will listen to your message. Then you have sincere actions, people, they will believe your message. So we're all united against violence, and we're gonna always keep engaging with those even they don't wanna engage with us. And we're never gonna lose hope. And as I said, despair not of God's grace. Thank you very much.
So it's a very important question about how we build trust. And I'm going to start with two things that have dramatically failed over the past decades in the region. The first one is the blaming and shaming culture, which is Sheikh bin Zayah has been talking about. For long decades, the West, the UN, the international organizations have been following a culture of blaming and shaming that has dramatically failed in the region, telling these countries that you are wrong, you are bad, what you're doing is wrong, this is a violation. Okay, but they never explained, two things never happened. Never explained why they're doing and what they're doing is wrong, because they only base them on certain values and certain, the rule says so, but okay, who put the rules? So that was one big question that was always asked. And they never asked, based on what are you doing this? Why are your actions this way? Why are your actions the way they are? And the second thing that has also dramatically failed is the bringing of outside values and wanting to implement them in the region. As those are the two things that have created, in my opinion, the most distrust. I was once on a field visit, giving a workshop for religious leaders 10 years ago, maybe in Bekaa in Lebanon, and I told, and I gave, ignorantly and very amateurly of me, gave an example of what the Netherlands has done to promote religious freedom in certain areas. And the sheikh told me, Habibi, this is not Amsterdam. This is Bekaa here. And I said, and this is the first time I realized, yeah, cultural appropriation of things and cultural respect is something very, very important. And we cannot go and bring outside. Of course, we share experiences. We say this worked here, and we see how it can work somewhere else. But we don't want to implement things from the outside that do not represent. So what builds trust are two things. First one, most importantly, which language you're speaking. The language, be it religious language, speaking the religious language of the group you are talking to, speaking the context language and the cultural language of the group you are talking to. And this is how, as a first step, you build the first stone of trust. Thank you.
So, thank you so much, Brother Habib, for let me speak before you. I appreciate that. Couple of points. What you basically emphasize the importance of the context and understanding the context. And when I mentioned the first tool in our toolbox as our theology and teachings, these theologies and teachings need to be interpreted based on the local context, taking into consideration culture, traditions, custom, and practices. I was visiting, I'm gonna give you a lot of stories, right? I was visiting the Sabah province in Malaysia, and I met with the Mufti of Sabah in Malaysia, and I saw in his office, the Mufti office, is books called Al-Fiqh Al-Sabahi, the jurisprudence of Sabah province. They created their own jurisprudence to fit their own specific context, called Al-Fiqh Al-Sabahi, the Sabah jurisprudence. That guarantees and shields the community from any other jurisprudence that is not fitting in this context to come from outside. And that's so critical. Now, second point I want to make regarding the Marrakesh Declaration, and I deliberately asked my brother, Fadi here to talk about the Marrakesh Declarations as somebody that is trying to implement the declaration. Yes, the Marrakesh Declaration is important theological documents. But my friend, Father Fadi, though he was here, he will tell you the declaration is important. But most importantly, if you read the framework speech of Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya in that conference that actually issued the Marrakesh Declaration. Adyan actually issued a booklet on the Marrakesh Declaration. But Fadi was the president of Adyan at the time. And he said, actually, the framework speech is more important than the declaration itself. So that's something that I just want to mention there. And then finally, Sharon, you asked the right question. When you have a trust, when you build a relationship, you have everything. We need to build that trust. And the trust we need to build, it should start from bottom up. From our own communities, we need to build that trust. In our local communities, and slowly and gradually, you're going to see how that trust actually helps. And I completely agree with you when you mention this culture of shaming and naming is not working. If I can put my hat as a commissioner a little bit, I always say that, we can issue reports. We can do all of that, which is important. But dialogue, for me, is the most important tool to support those who are suffering from persecutions on the ground. You need to find the mechanism of dialogue. Thank you so much.
People are criticizing us. I have friends will say, the more you go to events about religious freedom and about tolerance, the more we hear about genocides all over the world. So I think it is by far beyond writing a report or doing a declaration. We are not forcing governments to go to the roots of the problem. This is not, especially maybe if you are living in Washington, D.C. or in London, you don't feel the heat of the problem. But if you are living in Nigeria, for example, or in Iraq or Syria or other places, or even in Lebanon, you know that you are talking about your future, about yourself, about a genocide that could come at any time. We saw that. We saw Mosul falling in one day. We saw populations that were displaced in one day. So in that, we need more than only events and reunions like this. We have to implement laws and order from governments. This is how it will happen with whatever we do in preparing the ground for that in media, in academia or others, but we need law enforcement, and this is the beginning of solving a problem.
We have actually 6 minutes left for questions. Does anybody have a burning question? We'll take a couple of them, and we have to finish here by 10 to 4. So Salah, first of all.
So, thank you, Sharon. Well, actually, I have 2 points. The first one is just, I would love to hear more about the implementation mechanism of the Marrakesh Declaration. That's the first one. The second one also, we have a perception in the Middle East that religious leaders are afraid of freedom of religion. So I was wondering if maybe Sheikh Mahfouz, because he's grown up with the Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayy, Hafidahullah, he knows better how to overcome that kind of perception in the Middle East. Thank you very much.
Thank you, yes. I think we're trying to talk about resilience also of religious minorities in the Middle East. And I think that one of the main issues that face the religious minorities in that region is the othering, is the separation between us and them. And a lot of the things that were said were very excellent on the panel, but I think that one of the issues that sometimes we forget, which impacts a lot the lives of the religious minorities in the region, is the issue of family law and the issue of not being able to have marriages recognized anything that relates to, you know, your father dies, you're not able to inherit, these things that leave you in a void because the religion that you belong to or the faith that you belong to is not recognized in those countries. So how do you think that, because this creates a huge othering, because then people have grandchildren and they're still not married by law, you know, or things like that, which is ridiculous. How do you think that that type of othering can be resolved? Thank you.
Thank you. In the MENA region, there are local governments that often heavily invest in optics of pluralism and religious freedom, even when these commitments are not actually reflected on the ground. And tokenization remains a challenge in these contexts. We saw this earlier this year, for example, with the Kurdish regional government, where the legitimacy of neo-Nazism and other extremist groups boiled over into an attack on Assyrians during their New Year's parade, and then it was followed up with a religious freedom prayer breakfast to kind of distract from these issues. So how can we ensure that the authentic voices of the communities living on the ground are actually heard by international NGOs and policymakers and politicians that go there? Because often it's not heard, they're not heard because of tokenization issues. And how can we encourage the development of meaningful metrics that evaluate whether these policies that look strong and amazing on paper, but they're not actually implemented in practice? Thank you.
Very shortly, very short. Can you do it very shortly, Marcella? Oh, you were pointing, I thought so. Ozstein, do you want to just, yeah.
Thank you. Very briefly, just on this issue about coming together on theology to Mr. Muhammad, I was just thinking, you know, that sometimes this issue of theology is very divisive. If you come together for theology, you will never agree. So I was just wondering what kind of approach you recommend when you recommend that we should come together to talk about, you know, faith and theology, so that it is not divisive, but you bring together on this issue. Thank you.
So let's go straight to the answers. Who would like to go first on one of these questions? Maybe we'll start from there.
I just want to comment on Ashurina's question. Yes, unfortunately, a lot of governments, a lot of leaders are taking the issue of religious freedom as a public relation firm, as a place where we can do public relation, where we can lobby, where we can, but nothing is being done on the roots of the treatment of giving the rights for the indigenous people all over. So on number two, just for declaration, there are beautiful declarations all over. And we're following on from Azhar to Tunis to Morocco to Abu Dhabi to Qatar to Saudi Arabia. There is a trend of openness that is very seen and very positive. Yet I don't think that the majority of the people are aware of what is happening. I don't think that if you take, let's say, in Morocco, someone who is a little bit extremist or a Muslim Brotherhood, that he even heard of what is happening. So the question is, how do we try to implement these ideas and values into the hearts and the roots and the brains of the majority of the people? Thank you very much.
So, which questions do you want me to answer? Okay, so I'm gonna say one sentence on each question. So, the first one is how to promote the Marrakesh Declaration. The Marrakesh Declaration, basically, if you read it, it actually promotes itself. It's a guiding document. It tells you how to implement it. It has a section at the end of the declaration, which is called based on the below, the conferees, a call upon the following, and it has a call for action that has 7 to 8 points where you can see it. Actually, the next step for the Marrakesh Declaration, 17, sorry. So the next steps of the Marrakesh Declaration is to work with governments to create actionable documents, work with representatives from documents, bring them all together. Okay, we told them, this is the principle, these are the principles that you agreed on. What do you want to do next? What will the lawyers do? What will the judges do? What will the parliamentarians do? What will the ministers do? And what will the civil society do? And that's something very important that we've been working on with the network and the Abu Dhabi Forum. How do you make sure that the voices of the communities are heard is very simple, like what we said. We do nothing about the communities without the communities being present, and we do not talk about the communities without the communities being present. And I think this is, while it seems like a very basic principle, that's a principle that has been overshadowed for a very long time. We've had declarations written without the groups for whom we are writing the declarations were not present, and that is a very big issue. Regarding personal status laws, this is the biggest issue and that's something that we've talked about in the gender panel that was happened before this one. One important approach that is a very uncommon one. We are working on creating a civil system for marriage in the region, but we do have to acknowledge that it's not very close to happening. We have to acknowledge that religious institutions in the region are very attached to the personal status law system. So we're going for a parallel action plan, which is reforming these personal status laws from within. Try to work with every religious institution, every sect itself, and with them try to reform the small things that we can change. And that is, and I can talk to you about that later if you want, but at Adyan we've been able to do great things. We've been able to raise custody ages for children in certain religions. We've been able to come with a certain agreement with the religious institution that child marriage is not acceptable, center these things about child's best interest in human rights, etc., etc. So that's the work from within. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I help you, Sharon, right? I help you to cut him off a little bit. Yeah, you're just going to. Implementation of the Marrakesh Declaration. Look, many declarations, I acknowledge that. The Marrakesh Declaration was, I call it the mothers of declarations. We tested the implementation in 7 countries, made it possible by the government of the Netherlands, 5 in Africa and 2, one is Indonesia and the Middle East and Iraq, actually, through the JISRA project, which is Search for Common Ground is a part of it. So we can talk about that. So we're working on that. Sister Diane, I think your question, there is need to be a recognition of all religions in the regions. That recognition is yet to happen. And I think we need to work to recognize so that people, they have the ability to actually acknowledge and practice their family law. And we need to work on that. My sister who asked about these authentic voices and all of that. Do you know who is Greg Mitchell? You know Greg Mitchell? Okay. The Earth Secretariat, Greg and Chris sitting together and trying to do Earth Secretariat around the world. The purpose is what? To bring those voices to actually come to the Earth Secretariat in all regions and air these voices. That is the mechanism that's available for all of you right now. Faith and theology. What mechanism we need to use? How are we going to approach this faith and theology? And theology, my brother is very busy writing, taking notes. Faith and theology, we have to have the interfaith first. We have to make an understanding within the one faith that extending relationships and extending interfaith, we need to have that unified understanding in one faith before we move to the second, which is the interfaith. We can talk more about it in the coffee break.
Thank you. And I'm going to leave. Yes, we have to finish.
I think last words should be just a prayer for all of us. But I want to answer his question about how much the scholars or the field state to be part of this movement. I will tell you something. September 11, 2001, I called my dad from California to say something bad happened in America. He said, So go and Hamza Yusuf, go meet President Bush. How am I going to do that? I'm a student in Berkeley, just taking my first classes in master. So I'm going to do that. He said, just go ahead, do it. True or not? I call a person I know, then I fly 1 week later after they open flying to Washington, D.C., carrying 5 points from my father to President Bush. And we've been able to deliver it. One of them, Islam being hijacked. And those who hijack Islam is very small minority. They don't represent us. We want all to unite to fight them. So then we start our journey from there. Then I will tell you small other step. In 2010, we had something called Mardin Conference. Between the 2001 to 2010, so many conferences, so many declarations against extremism, everywhere. 2010, we had a small conference in a place in Turkey called Mardin. And why is Mardin? Because there is a fatwa 700 years ago. They built it as a constitution and as given the legitimacy to have violence. And they killed Anwar Sadat because of that fatwa. And being published by Muhammad al-Bura'i in something called al-Farida al-Ghaiba. We went through that fatwa. We find it is mistake. It has a mistake print in that fatwa. When he said deal, they write it kill. So they built their old philosophy in a misprint fatwa called Mardin fatwa. So when we did that conference, 5 organizations, including a guy, his extremist, he was in Yemen, his name Anwar al-Ulaqi, killed by the American after that, sent 15 pages from his cave against our fatwa. So then the international security community stopped them. Why all those groups reacting just to these 15 people? They have a meeting in Mardin. They said, because we're taking their legitimacy. We're not letting him act in the name of our religion. So that's what leads to all what happened after that from Marrakesh Declaration. You need to be brave and to live a life.
Please join me in thanking our expert panel.